Now we're going to look at how Italy became unified. Our learning objective is to explain how Italy became a unified state. Although the people of the Italian peninsula spoke the same language, they had not experienced political unity since the Roman Empire. By the early 1800s, Italian patriots were determined to establish a unified Italian state. As in Germany, unification came through a strong state and furthered by a shrewd, ruthless politician, Camillo Cavour. Obstacles to unity. For centuries, Italy had been a battleground for ambitious foreign and local princes. The people came to identify themselves with local regions. The people of Florence considered themselves Tuscans, those of Venice, Venetians, and those of Naples, Neapolitans, and so on. However, the invasions of Napoleon had inspired national unity. So if you think back to when we talked about Napoleon earlier in the year, Napoleon had invaded many countries in Europe, and part of that tied into a strong sense of French nationalism. But we talked about how other nationalist groups kind of began to find some unity in fighting Napoleon's invading forces, and that was the case in Italy. Then, of course, after Napoleon, we had the Congress of Vienna, which the Congress of Vienna did not recognize the desires of the nationalists. Austria took control of much of northern Italy, while the Habsburg monarchs ruled other various Italian states. In the south, a French Bourbon ruler controlled Naples and Sicily. Finally, in the 1830s, the nationalist leader Giuseppe Mazzini founded Young Italy. The goal of this secret society was to form a unified Italian state. In 1849, he helped to set up a revolutionary republic in Rome, but it was toppled by the French. Like many revolutionaries, he spent much of his life living in exile and plotting and dreaming of a unified Italy. And now we're going to come to look at Piedmont. After 1848, people looked to the northern Italian state of Piedmont to lead the fight for unification. The king of Piedmont named Camillo Cavour his prime minister, and Cavour pursued economic expansion, which gave the government enough money to support a large army. He then made an alliance with the French emperor, Louis Napoleon, knowing his army by itself could not defeat Austria, and then he provoked the Austrians into invading Piedmont. It was 1859. The conflict resulted in a peace settlement that made Piedmont an independent state. Cavour's success caused nationalists in the northern Italian states to overthrow their governments and join their states to Piedmont too. The Red Shirts. In southern Italy, a new patriotic leader for unification emerged, Giuseppe Garibaldi. He raised an army of 1,000 volunteers called Red Shirts because of the color of their uniforms. A revolt broke out in Sicily against the Bourbon king, and Garibaldi and his forces landed on the island. By July of 1860, they had controlled most of the island, and they marched up the mainland, and Naples soon fell. Garibaldi turned his conquests over to Piedmont, and in 1861 a new kingdom of Italy was proclaimed. King Victor Emmanuel II, who had been king of Piedmont, was crowned the ruler. The Italian state allied with Prussia in the Austro-Prussian War of 1866. When Prussia won, it gave Venetia to the Italians. France withdrew from Rome in 1870. The Italian army annexed Rome that same year, and Rome became the capital of the United Italy. Challenges facing the new nation. Italy had no tradition of unity. Few Italians felt ties to the new nation. Strong regional rivalries left many in Italy unable to solve critical national issues. The greatest regional differences were between North and South. The North was richer and had more cities than the South. The northern cities had flourished as centers of business and culture. The South, on the other hand, was rural and poor. Hostility existed between Italy and the Roman Catholic Church. Popes bitterly resented the seizure of the Papal States in Rome. The government granted the papacy the small territory of the Vatican, and popes encouraged Italian Catholics not to cooperate with their new government. Under Victor Emmanuel II, Italy was a constitutional monarchy with a two-house legislature. The king appointed members to the upper house, which could veto bills that were passed by the lower house. Although the lower house consisted of elected representatives, only a small number of men had the right to vote. In the late 1800s, unrest increased on the left against the conservative government. Socialists organized strikes, while anarchists, or people who want to abolish all government, turned to sabotage and violence. Despite its problems, Italy did develop economically, especially after 1900. Industrialization took place, especially in the north, and it faced many of the same problems as other industrialized nations. The population explosion of this period created tensions. One important safety valve for many people was immigration, or movement away from their homeland. Many Italians left for the United States, Canada, and Latin American nations. By 1914, the country was significantly better off than it had been in 1861, but it was hardly prepared for the Great War that broke out that year.